All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel, and we try to delve into great theories of everything, ancient and modern, mostly obscure, and help the viewer to employ these great theories of everything in their own lives, especially for their paradigm shifting, their awakening to 5D consciousness, their formation of a holistic worldview, their quest for better spiritual, mental, and physical health. And today is our 77th video that we've done on the book called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha by Daniel Ingram. And he goes into all things Buddhism, but focuses on meditation, in particular insight meditation, following, opening up to our five senses and our mental sensations and investigating them for the three characteristics of impermanence, dissatisfactoriness, and no self. And through that process, going through a cycle of stages of insight that culminate in kind of enlightenment by degrees with every rotation of that cycle. And Ingram's, what this book offers that I haven't seen in other books is really just a lot of maps, a lot of kind of comparative analysis of different schools of Buddhism and what and breaking them down and kind of, as the book says, mastering the core teachings of the Buddha. So this is not really about Buddhism. It's about the core teachings. There's a whole lot of fluff around the edges that he criticizes incessantly in the book. But the main focus of the book is the core. And that is really the three trainings. First training in morality, second training in concentration, which is also meditation on an object, which can confer many exotic states of mind and called jhanas, and also a lot of bliss. But then also training in wisdom, or insight meditation, or vipassana, which is going to confer wisdom. And that is kind of what he puts in the book that's really stands out. And we're in chapter 38 or so, which is a really long chapter on the different models of enlightenment and kind of criticizing those or lauding those depending on which one he's talking about. And this is a section that's called ditching the stuff, or ditching your stuff, or ditching the split. And he's really kind of going against the grain here of kind of the Buddhist, at least popular conceptions that dealing with your stuff, your neuroses, your complexes, and all these psychological, barriers, these things are all impossible to eradicate. You can work on them, but you always are producing more by the process of life. And so you're not going to, get rid of all of them. Even though that's kind of a lot of the Enlightenment models presume that if you're enlightened, then you've already dealt with your stuff. And so you have, you start glowing, or you start to have, some kind of saintly aura or something. But he says instead that actually the insight, the wisdom part, the awakening part is what is actually attainable. And you can attain enlightenment It's not easy, but it can be done as opposed to working on your stuff. So that's what this section is really kind of about: ditching your stuff or ditching the split. A duality, and the split of the separate self, separate from the phenomena that you're investigating for the three characteristics. Okay, so we'll take over right here. Try these two scenarios on for size and see which seems to fit with your life goals and with your vision of a life well lived. In the first, imagine working with your stuff as best you can for most of your life, never really knowing what is just needless mind noise and mental duress caused by a lack of basic clarity. In your old age, you do the practices that lead to realization. The benefits of that level of understanding may then be used for yourself and others during the remaining years of your life. In the second scenario, you take the time early in your spiritual practice to attain realization, following the precise instructions and recommendations of a well-developed insight tradition. You then use that level of increased clarity, acceptance, intimacy with life, and transcendence to work on your stuff and benefit others for the rest of your life. The second approach seems vastly superior to me, but my biases are a result of my own conditioning. Our conditioning, opportunity or lack thereof, and circumstance will have a strong impact on what happens. Still, from a relative point of view, take responsibility for the choice you make. Okay, now this section is called the Nothing to Do and You Are Already There schools. On a somewhat different note, I feel the need to address, which is to say shoot down, with every bit of rhetorical force that I have, the insidious notion promoted by some teachers and even traditions that there is nothing to do, nothing to accomplish, no goal to attain, no awakening other than the ordinary state of being, no practice or tradition that is of value, no technique that will yield anything worthwhile. The other side of this same coin is the point of view that you are already realized, already there, already Buddha, already completely accomplished, and you should essentially be able to hear this, to understand it for yourself, which, were that the case, would have been very nice of those propounding this view, except that it is complete bullshit. The nothing to do school and the you are already there school are both basically vile extremes of the same basic notion that all effort to attain mastery is missing the point, an error of craving or grasping. They both contradict the fundamental premise of this book, namely that there is something amazing to attain and understand, and that there are specific reproducible methods that can help you do that. Some defenders of these spiritually harmful views will claim that they are the most immediate, most complete, highest, most special, most profound, and most direct teachings available. I will claim that they do not lead to much that is good, that cannot be attained through conceptual frameworks that are not nearly so problematic or easily misconstrued. First, these notions encourage people not to practice anything. The defenders can say what they like, but again and again, I see people who subscribe to these sorts of notions resting on their cleverness and grand posteriors and not actually getting it in the same way that my accomplished meditator friends get it. It seems so comforting, this notion that you are already something that in fact you are not, or that there is nothing that you could do that would be useful. The idea that people are already something begs the question, what are they? These views tend to imply that they are already something such as perfect, enlightened, realized, awakening, or even worse. that they are awareness itself with cosmic consciousness, the Atman, an aspect of the divine, etc., none of which can be found. While the totally misinterpreted end of very confused Buddhism does sometimes go there, such as using terms like Dharmakaya and Buddha nature, these are often misappropriated, misconstrued, subtle concepts that were added later and require a ton of explanation and practice experience to keep them from becoming the monsters they nearly always become among spiritual dilettantes. Awakening involves clearly perceiving universal characteristics of phenomena. While we can attempt to rest comfortably in the intellectual idea that these universal characteristics are there anyway, and be comforted by the nothing to attain and already there teachings, the whole core, essential root point of all this is that there is something to be gained by becoming one of the people who can directly perceive the true nature of phenomena clearly enough to fundamentally change the way reality is perceived in real time. The straight truth is that most people do not start out being able to do anything even close to this. And most are lucky to be able to stay with 2 breaths in sequence before wandering off into their neurotic crap, much less understand anything liberating about those breaths. The idea that everyone already is someone who can perceive reality the way the masters do without effort in real time is a pernicious falsehood, lie, untruth, delusion, and in short, one great load of apathy creating insanity. If we go around asking people without very good insight into these things, that is, the unawakened, about basic Dharma points that are obvious to those who have learned to pay attention well, we do not find that everyone is already a person who is perceiving things at the level that makes the difference that Dharma practice promises. Further, even individuals at initial stages of enlightenment generally have a hard time saying that they can perceive the emptiness, luminosity, selflessness, causality, interdependence, transience, ephemerality, etc. of reality in real time at all times without having to do anything. In short, the supposition that this is as easy as just being what you already are is wildly off the mark, since most people are woefully underdeveloped on the perceptual front in question. Thus, all reality testing reveals that these 2 schools are missing a very fundamental point, while the universal characteristics are always manifesting in all things and at all times. There are those who can perceive this well, and those who cannot. And meditative training, conceptual frameworks, techniques, teachers, texts, discussions, and the like all contribute to developing the internal skills and wiring to be able to realize fully what is possible, as thousands of practitioners through the ages have done. I myself have known before and after, meaning that I know what I was capable of perceiving and understanding before I underwent meditative training, and after. No amount of being fed, swallowing, and or digesting the myth that I am always already as developed as I could be, am already enlightened, am already there, have nothing to do, nothing to develop, nothing to learn, nothing to practice, nothing to master, am always already as clear as I can be, am already perfectly awake, etc., will ever make the difference that practicing for thousands of hours over many years has done. It would be like saying, you are already a concert pianist, you just have to realize it. Or, you are already a nuclear physicist, you just have to realize it. Or, you already speak every language, you just have to realize it. It would be like saying to a 2-year-old, you already understand everything you need to know, so stop learning new things now. It would be like saying to a severe paranoid schizophrenic, you are already as sane as anyone and do not need to take your medications, and go ahead, feel free to just follow the voices that tell you to kill people. That's a little bit of dualism there, but you know, I'd like to take the chance to take shots at him whenever he goes into his medical bag. But it would be like saying to a person with heart disease, by all means, just keep smoking 3 packs a day and eating fried pork rinds, and you will be healthy. It would be like saying to an illiterate person who keeps having a hard time navigating in daily life and is constantly being ripped off, you don't need to learn to read, write, and do math. You are dandy just the way you are. It would be like saying to a greedy, corrupt, corporate-raiding, white-collar criminal, fascist, alcoholic, wife-beating pedophile, hey, dude, you are like a beautiful, perfect flower of the now moment, already enlightened. You are doing and not doing just fine. Like, wow, so keep on, like, just being you, man. Would you let a blind and paralyzed, untrained stroke victim perform open heart surgery on your child based on the hopefully by now obviously flawed notion that they already are an accomplished surgeon, but just have to realize it? Would you follow the Dharma teachings of people who feed other people this kind of complete madness? Those who imagine that everyone somehow in their development already became as clear and perceptive as they could be just by being alive are missing something very profound. Do they imagine that you can just remind people of these things and suddenly all wisdom and clarity will suddenly appear? This is mind-bogglingly naive and some of the worst form of magical thinking out there. I've gained so much that is good and lost so much that is bad by learning to practice well, learning to concentrate, learning the theory, learning insight practices, going through the organic process of the stages over decades, reading the old texts, reading about the lives of great and dedicated practitioners, having Dharma conversations with Dharma friends, debating points, wrestling with difficult concepts and how to apply them in my actual life, teaching, learning, studying, writing, realizing how things are, and delving deeply into the sensate world. That I am astounded that anyone would want to reduce something so grand, wonderful, deep, rich, amazing, and profound to such a paltry, puerile, and ridiculous concept as the notion that it is already all in place in everyone regardless of what they have done or not done. All those benefits, skills, learnings, abilities, stages, states, experiences, insights, and fundamental perceptual changes simply were not available until I did the work, took the time, participated in the process, and no amount of anyone telling me otherwise would have helped or made it so. I know of no examples where the necessary and sufficient causes for the arising of these benefits did not involve effort, a method, and a process. In short, I say to those who persist in promoting the nothing-to-do school and the you are already there school, stop it. You are spreading craziness, and the problem with this craziness is that many people will not be able to discern that it is craziness, and that appears to include those who promote these fallacies. While I usually do not go as far as to tell people that there is something so deeply wrong with what they think and how they communicate it that they should stop it immediately and forever, this specific point is a great example of someone I consider abhorrent, something I consider abhorrent, and worthy of complete and immediate elimination from the planet. Regardless of any possibly kind intentions, the teachings of these schools take a half-truth that seems so very nice and seductive to us neurotic practitioners who can barely stand another achievement trip and have such a hard time with self-acceptance, and turn that distortion into sugar-coated poison. There is no need to tie the 3 useful concepts of no self, self-acceptance in the ordinary sense, and the notion that the sensations that lead to understanding, if clearly perceived a sufficient number of times and to sufficient depth, are manifesting right here and right now, to such a perversely twisted yet seemingly benign concept and its offshoots as the ones these schools are unfortunately promote. All right, this section is called Depths of Realization and Integration. Accurately qualifying and quantifying depths of realization is a perpetually difficult business. In my own practice, I have noticed that realizations which occurred many years ago continue to percolate, continue to change how this Daniel operates, continue to benefit from cushion time and attention to Dharma teachings and other practices, continue to benefit from interaction with other Dharma practitioners and other social interactions, and seem to have no obvious endpoint in terms of how far they can go to gradually transform this organism. I've also mostly lived the life of a householder, being in graduate school and working at a professional job for most of my adult life, except when on retreat. While caring for patients clearly has dharmic aspects to it, providing many opportunities to learn about suffering and to try to do something about it, there are those who have chosen lives dedicated to meditation and the reclusive life, and that causality can be significant. While a reclusive life of meditation doesn't guarantee realization, for those with talent who have trained well in that sort of context and gone deep into the realization of the teachings of the Buddha, you can often feel the depths that sort of life allows when you are with them, talking to them, and also reading their written words and listening to or watching their recorded talks. I personally have tried to study with people with very long retreat histories and long periods of monastic practice for this very reason, and found it quite expedient to do so. I encourage you to do the same. We are currently experiencing a lay Dharma renaissance, a time of proliferation of Dharma books, teachers, techniques, and centers. There is more open discussion of real attainments, and more talented lay people are bending their wills and minds to the task of learning the depths of the Dharma. The texts have never been more accessible to the whole world. There have never been more places to practice, and general freedom to pursue our chosen spiritual tradition has never been greater. That is clearly yielding more Dharma understanding and achievement in segments of the populations where it was not previously seen to this degree. That said, the ease with which the Dharma can be accessed is causing a degree of superficiality in some of the practitioners, decried by those who appreciate and respect traditional methods and results. I realize this suddenly makes me sound more like the stuffy old guard than some radical trying to reform Buddhism, but my aims are mostly quite traditional, as hopefully you have noticed. In that vein, some Western teachers have noted an obvious difference between the depth, quality, and clarity of the Dharma that comes out of the seasoned monastic masters who trained them versus some lay teachers currently teaching. I clearly fall into the lay teacher category, and in reading my own words as I write them, I must be honest and say that I can feel this same difference. Luckily, I have also noticed that as I get older, there is some gradual improvement and deepening of the realizations that practicing with the seasoned masters afforded me. That said, I don't pretend it is anything like the same effect produced by decades of high-end monastic practice and life in a practice-oriented monastic setting. Yet some of the skill sets and bodies of knowledge that you find in lay practitioners is clearly helping to bring the Dharma into the modern world in a way that monastics have not always done as fluidly. You will likely also notice these differences in your own practice and those you practice with. As the years pass and the Dharma does its work, there is some mellowing, some ripening, and like a fine wine or a good cheese, your practice will hopefully produce something mature and good. Integration of insights takes time, as will be discussed in a bit. It is an organic process. While some situations seem to be able to expedite integration, it can only go so fast and still go deep. The key point here is to give your practice time to develop. Keep at it and have respect for your senior Dharma teachers. While they may not be as flashy or charismatic as the younger ones, there is likely something sweet and refined to be gained from exposure to their likely well-integrated wisdom. As you have probably noticed, this section is called Archetypes, Roles, Inspiration, and Becoming. As you've probably noticed, I have gone out of my way to insult, tear down, reality test, debunk, and demythologize many of the great archetypes and inspirational role models that we find out there, calling to us inside our hearts and minds. This may be seriously problematic, as there is much to be said for the motivation that comes from chasing a dream. Much great practice and attained wisdom has come from dreaming of becoming like our spiritual superheroes, the technical practitioner, the Zen master, the magical healer, the big-hearted saint, the unattached wandering bhikkhuni or bhikkhu, monk, or nun, the crazy wisdom guru, the shamatha master, the venerable mage, the mental athlete, the deep scholar, the liberated free spirit, the transcendent mystic, the wise shaman, the impeccable warrior, the bodhisattva. All these things and more may form the basis of much skilled motivation to practice well, to become something truly remarkable, to plunge deeply into the Dharma. As you can clearly tell, I find fantasy very inspiring, draw from some or all of those archetypes, and don't regret that in the least, considering it a source of strength and power to try to do better in my own practice. There is a way to hold the downsides, limits, and shadow sides of each of those ideals in our minds while simultaneously deriving true delight in the opportunity to practice techniques that can hopefully get us closer to our spiritual goals and most skillful Dharma dreams. Holding the compelling fantasies and the human realities in our mind simultaneously in a way that takes and applies what is good and leaves out what is bad is one of the keys to success on the path. Paradoxes. They are at the heart of the spiritual life. All right, this section is called Dependent Origination. The teaching on the 12 links of dependent origination is one of the Buddha's greatest insights. It is essentially a model of reality, causality, perception, and awakening all in one. You can find it in its original form in such places as Sutra 15 of the Long Discourses of the Buddha, Great Discourses on Causation, Origination, also called the Great Causes Discourse. Fragments of it appear in numerous other sutras. There are many books and essays that go into the depths of this subject, so if you want something at that level, look there, not here. In an ultra-simplified nutshell, it lays out the chain of causality in which each thing is caused by something else until we get to the root cause. The premise is that if the root cause is removed, then the great chain of causality collapses. This great chain of causality was contemplated by the Buddha shortly after his awakening and represents one of his most profound teachings. Starting at the top, we have the obvious and undeniable fact that sickness, aging, pain, lamentation, grief, despair, and death are dependent on birth. That link in the chain is an important thing to notice and get to know very well, as, curiously enough, studying that link well leads to understanding the whole thing. Beginning the moment you are born, conceived actually, you will age, have pain, get sick, and die. Makes sense. The number of people who are in denial of this basic and obvious set of facts is mind-boggling. Don't be one of those. Then this gets stranger. Birth is based on becoming, also translated as existence. Here we must suddenly dive into the world of ancient India with its working paradigm that envisioned beings are reborn into countless lives again and again based on their karma. I'm going to skip over the complexities as it is not terribly important to the main points I wish to make here. The teaching on the 12 links makes great sense once you get sufficiently awakened and doesn't necessarily require belief in the doctrine of rebirth. Okay, we'll try one more paragraph here. Speaking of constriction, becoming is based on clinging, in that we cling to existence. This clinging is based on craving for experience and for being. This craving is based on Vedana, usually translated as feeling or perhaps feeling tone, which is the aspect of sensations being pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Vedana arises in dependence on contact between objects and the sense doors, and contact depends on the 6 sense doors. These 6 sense doors are themselves dependent on name and form, which refer to mind and matter. Name and form are themselves dependent on consciousness. Consciousness is dependent on volitional formations. And last but not least, volitional formations are based on ignorance. Each of these terms is complicated, and their very specialized meanings and implications are also complicated. The translation makes these difficulties worse. Potentially having a totally different working paradigm from those prevalent in ancient and modern India regarding rebirth may not help at all. However, a few salient points can be made, but those points will not be made until tomorrow, because we're going to stop there for today, and we'll listen to these salient points tomorrow when we come back. Please join me, and thanks for tuning in today.